podcast app, you'll see there's a discourse segment. Is this book a masterpiece or problematic? One's a lifelong diehard fan, the other's a first-time reader. Both are really smart and funny and attractive. Sweet feather, sweet feather, talking trends and hierarchy. Sweet feather, sweet feather, relentless focus on their bodies. Sweet feather, sweet feather, what do they mean by all Americans? Sweet feather, sweet feather, no sex, just titillation.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
What is that?
My Fat Albert voice.
Was that your Fat Albert voice? Huh. Is Fat Albert not canceled? I feel like it should be.
I don't know, but when I was little, it was one of the things my sister taught me, and she used to always make me say, "Hey, hey, hey, it's Fat Albert, and I'm gonna sing a song for you, and Bill's gonna show you a thing or two." When I was little,
Catchy.
she used to make me do that on command. She used to have all kinds of commands for me. She would say like lower, low. There was all kinds of things she taught me to do. She'd say like lower your eyes, and I had to go like this.
Wait, what does lower your eyes mean? What's happening?
Like to like make your eyelids like not closed, but like to where you're like looking through like narrow eyes. Yeah.
It's very seductive and alluring.
She also told me by the time I was 23, all my eyelashes would fall out because they were always falling out.
Did that happen? Are these all false?
No, they're mostly gone, but I have a few left. And she told me that no one would ever marry me because of the scar on my nose. And if I ever found someone who didn't notice it and I got them to marry me, I'd be walking down the aisle and my sister would jump out of the aisle and be like, "Oh, look, the scar on her nose." And my husband, because she was being heteronormative back in the 80s, would be like, "Oh my gosh, like, she's a monster." And like run off and leave me at the altar. And yes, it was Fat Albert who I was engaged to, yes.
And your sister. My sister's Fat Albert. I'm engaged to Fat Albert. It's beautiful. Does my voice sound weird? Does my audio sound weird? And we are saying test 1, 2, 3. We are saying test 1, 2,
Great.
3.
Perfect.
Is this way better than the other way?
It's the same as number one, which
Which is
what
P.
I hoped for. P0.
What's P0?
That's what I call my pussy.
That's nothing. We can't do this.
Yeah,
That
it
can't
is
be
because
it.
it's like the original hole. That's funny. And I did listen to a podcast on evolution of the anus, so I know of which I speak. Anyhow,
Lord knows you've talked about that many, many times on the pod. As is our tradition, could I please have a carrot?
oh, we want to make this a
It's a new
regular
thing.
thing?
It's a bit. It's
Oh, that's
carrots with
fun.
Becky.
Mm, mm. And I'm almost serving as a sort of, what's the name of that bunny rabbit? Okay, not Roger Rabbit, the other one.
Bugs
Bugs. I'm
Bunny.
sort of serving as in the Bugs role, the sort of sardonic. Okay, here is the carrot for today. It's a story of how I used to eat hot dogs as a kid.
Sold.
Actually, no, I
Sold
have
in the
two
room.
stories. No, you know what? I have two stories about hot dogs of being a kid, and
Those are
today's
carrots.
carrot is a dog. Today's carrot's a hot dog.
Let's go. Let's jump right in.
Which is funny because sometimes people like to be like, "Oh, a veggie hot dog," but they just make a carrot. I'm like, "You're rude."
No one's ever done that. That's
You are getting too comfortable with spitty fingers, and I just need to draw. Like, it is not okay.
also.
I don't like it. It
Yeah.
makes my heart rate go up in a way I'm not comfortable with.
I'm sorry. I tried to Google for works cited like the wrap it up fingers, and apparently this is you're supposed to do it like you're wrapping up a present. That's what the internet told me.
What is this, Renaissance times? Like,
I don't-
no, like,
Yeah,
no.
isn't this it?
Yes,
I
because
Googled-
it's like film. It's like we're talking about the production world. Okay, like that is a wrap. It's like the film is wrapping around the canister, which
Yeah.
I might have just pulled out of my, you know what, the original whole P0.
P0. Ask for my name.
That's funny.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's our carrot. Our carrot is hot dog stories.
Okay.
The book is Sweet Valley High number 60. It's called That Fatal Night.
Listeners, I need you to know, like, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in my life. When I tell you
Oh, like
that
there's nothing going on in mine. Oh, like my life is just what?
Say, I'm trying to have a moment with the
Humdrum.
listeners.
Okay.
Could I?
Guess I'm just eating my raisin bran, calling it a day.
That would be a dream.
Could be worse. Could be worse.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What I was trying to share with the listeners was a vulnerable moment. I cried many times in this book. I fucking loved this book. I started this book last night and was like, I'll probably get a quarter of the way in and then finish the rest of the morning. I couldn't put it down. I am crying uncontrollably. Is it perfect? No. Are there flaws? Sure. Is it what I need? What I needed? How I feel? How I love? How I learn? Yes.
Wow.
This, as the kids say, it banged my booty hole. It really just ruled the day. I loved this book.
Oh gosh, I'm starting to be almost having to shed a tear because
Hmm.
this, and sometimes we feel different, and this time we're feeling exactly the same, which is flawed, of course. You'd be fooled to think that we're gonna enter the realm of disability and it's gonna be, roses and daisies or whatnot. We have some bumps of the road, figuratively and literally, in our kind of dive into blindness. And yet, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous book. And it's funny because when I look back on them, this one, I didn't go into it thinking like I'm gonna love this. I didn't think I was gonna have the experience I had reading it, which was like, damn, this is gorgeous. So many gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous,
Gorge.
powerful, powerful moments and observations and glorious. I mean, yeah, I cried. I mean, I think we both know the moment. I think we both know the moment.
I'm not sure. I mean, I cried so many times, it's hard for me I don't have a moment. I had multiple moments.
Okay. I might have cried multiple times too. Definitely a lot near the end.
You always have to one-up me.
No, I definitely put it this way. However many times you cried, let's call that N. I cried N+1.
Okay. Wait, P0?
I did actually cry a lot. Robert actually cried so much too. Okay, I actually cried so many times. But there is one moment that does stand out, and I think you know the moment I'm talking about. Come on. If it were a movie, this would be the big musical climax. This would be the share at the fountain.
Come
on.
Whatever.
We're
gonna get to it. We'll get to it.
We're on the same team. Like, this is a glorious, glorious book.
We don't need to fight.
I mean,
we'll still find a way to fight.
Affirming.
I
Although,
fucking love this book. Don't ruin it for me, please.
we're going to have some tough conversations, but that's okay.
I'm not ready.
'Cause we're
I'm
gonna
not equipped.
We're going to have them with love. Do you have a 6-word review?
I do. True love sees with the heart.
Wonderful.
Thank
It
you.
reminds me of Let's us start over.
That's good. Was that you or me? That's great.
That was you. I
Oh, I
would never
love
know
that.
what a let is
Oh,
except
true,
you
true,
explained
true.
it to me. But
And you immediately forgot.
true love sees with the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Do you have a 6-word review?
Friday Night Lights ripped off this book. You did or didn't watch?
I watched season 1, thought, wow, that Connie Britton's a real talent. Is she
And I'm
not?
sort of visualizing that I'm receiving your condescension and hostility, and I'm being the alchemist, and I'm sort of transforming it into
Gold?
something that feels better. Let's go with that. Gold. I'm transforming it into gold.
I'm sure you know this, of course, but famously,
What, your neighbor invented Friday Night Lights and BoJack Horseman and best friends with Coco the gorilla because you do gay running with them? What?
Connie Britton and I have the same order at a restaurant in Nashville.
That's cute. What's
Isn't
the
that cute?
order?
It's a salad
And
with.
don't tell us the restaurant. I only want to know the order.
Would never tell you the restaurant. That's between me and Connie Britton.
I know.
Love you, CB. It's just a salad with salmon on top of it. It's like very basic. But
It's like either tell it or don't, but don't half tell it. Like salad with salmon.
they do like a salmon burger, but you don't actually get the burger. You say, can I have the salmon from the salmon burger on top of this salad dressing on the side? No tomatoes.
So it's off menu. You're doing a customization that wasn't suggested, or it's like the menu kind of tells you can do that.
Please, some of us don't wait to ask to be told by the menu what we can do. Some of us just grab menus by the horns. Off
So
menu,
you and
baby.
Connie both just spontaneously improvise this out of your own. Wow.
Now maybe she saw me do it and thought, oh, that's a great idea. I don't know.
Oh, I kind of feel like it's something everyone does, and like you just are pretending like it was something with Connie. I feel like it is. Sorry,
Can
it just
I
doesn't
just
sound true. It
okay?
just doesn't sound real. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. Just I don't.
I'm
It's not believable, Robert. It's
I'm
just
gonna
not
take
believable.
I'm gonna
And I'm a
take
better liar than you.
I'm gonna take this negativity and condescension and like an alchemist, I'm
Hmm.
gonna transform it and think, oh, she believes me. Oh, she loves me. This
What were
book,
we talking about?
this book. Me
6 word
and Connie
reviews?
Britton. Yeah, you said this Friday Night Lights rips off this book, and that's fine.
I got mad because you were being rude. Because Friday Night Lights is life. Famously, okay, and I'm sorry to spoil, and I'm gonna spoil the pilot
I know, I've
of
seen the pilot
Friday.
episode. I've seen the whole
No,
first season.
I mean for the
Oh,
listeners.
I don't care about the listeners. I only care about myself.
It actually is similar because the whole thing is that this guy is the star quarterback, and it's like anticipated that he's being recruited for all this shit. And there's like such stakes, and there's scouts at the game. And like he is the quarterback, and he's also the like very much leader of the team, and like is seen as the leader and the one who like victory hinges on, and who also just like from a morale perspective, an integrity perspective, a strategy perspective, is like the backbone, no pun intended, of the team. Okay. And in the middle of big game, what happens? But Jason Street, the one who NBC News even is trying to be talking to and saying, Jason Street, you're literally the best quarterback in the world, is what they call you. Where are you going to go to college or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. And everyone's like, yeah, Jason Street, the big football hero. And
Pat
then
Albert's there?
Pat Albert is in the front row or whatever they call it. And
He has orchestra seats.
Alfred, that's funny. And then, and then they're playing the big game, and Jason Street gets knocked on his ass by this other guy, and he cannot get up, and they have to take him out on a stretcher, and everyone's out there being like this, and they do a prayer for him, et cetera, et cetera. But guess what? He is paralyzed for life, and now he is being a wheelchair user, and now he has to adapt. And it's so fucking brilliant how well that show depicts his whole journey, and also the like his girlfriend, who's the big cheerleader, can't handle it and is being like toxic positive, the illustrious and the wonderful and the brilliant Minka Kelly. She's trying to be like, you're going to be all ready to play football again, and once we get you all patched up, and you can do it. And eventually he's like, whatever, he goes on his whole journey. But it's like there are actually a lot of parallels, and one of the things that I think is so well done about Friday Night Lights is it shows how his experience like basically fundamentally changes him as a person, and how he is a different person from it, and like that has implications for like who he is a match with and who whatever. And like I loved seeing, like one of the things I loved about this book was seeing that Ken also has personal growth through his experience. And that he actually changes from it, or at least they're telling us he has. We'll see if it's a Bruce change or a real change, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, is he actually going to be interesting now?
Yeah.
Is he ever going to not go to the football field, as it were? You know? But, and it was nice to see return of Kristen Thompson and, you know, the sporty gals. The sporty gals. I felt like they should have their own side book if they're all friends anyway.
Shelley Novak, like, let's have a little moment.
Yeah.
Ladies Sports Corner, we could call
like,
it.
let's see them at the gym, you know?
Or, yeah, and do
whatever
anything.
they do.
They can go to the Dairy Burger. They can do what they need to do.
The cliffhanger is what Amy Sutton has a crush on Ken Matthews, and Jessica is observing this. And Ken Matthews, of course, is the star quarterback that Jessica's dated casually, and Amy's the quote unquote boy crazy girl, that is sort of demonic and sort of harmless. And then, except sometimes she leads to people dying from 2 lines of cocaine. Or no, that was her with Bruce behind the tree.
I mean, yeah, saying she leads to someone dying from 2 lines of cocaine.
I'm of course being facetious. I famously defended all the people that were like snort it for being like they didn't do anything.
Yeah,
but,
you did love those people. You were
the
big
snorter
on
girls. Okay, I love this. Those snorter girls, like I have their back. Okay,
snorter girls stand up.
The cliffhanger is what is Ken gonna lead the gladiators to victory in the game, and is Amy and him gonna date?
It's just
is Amy and him gonna date?
It's really, I sure hope Amy doesn't break Ken's heart. Are Amy and Ken an item? Find out in Sweet Valley number 60 that fatal night.
So weird, this like a narrative of Jessica being like, I'm worried because Amy's the so not serious girl, and Ken obviously does want something serious, and we're both being like, no, but historically he's famous for being the casual dating guy. And even in this book they reinforce Todd in a very homo way, which we will discuss, says like, I don't think Ken's ever had interest in wanting a girlfriend. So it's like, anyhow.
I almost feel, yeah, this book is so. This is my favorite book in a long, long, long time.
Wow.
Do you want to summarize the plot?
Oh, yes, summarize the plot. I mean, it's basically just A plot, right? B plot is Jessica dates Skip Harmon for a night and then realizes he's annoying and stops dating him and does some funny things along the way, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So the whole Skip Harmon subplot is he's rich, he's really handsome, he's really vain and obsessed with himself. And Jessica basically literally says, that don't impress me much. She like is acting out the Shania Twain "That Don't Impress Me Much" song. And I was going to open our podcast with that song, but I was like, Robert, hold space for Ken. But it just was so, before I knew exactly what was happening with the book, I was like, this is hilarious. I mean, she literally goes like, so you got a nice car. Who cares? Like, she literally.
Shania Twain ripped off this book.
There's a moment where she says like he's always got a comb in his pocket. And I'm like, I have complicated feelings about Shania Twain, but I love that song. And Shania Twain took it from this book.
That's amazing. Do you want to summarize the A plot? Well, we've had him before and we'll have him again. A petite brown-haired girl. And you're thinking Dee Dee Gordon? No. Another
Jennifer someone?
No. She was regular size. This one is called Terri. And Terri's personality trait is football. Her personality trait is she loves football. She's knowing everything about football. And she's, guess what? Brushing the dust off her shoulders as she tells you that she's none other than the assistant statistician of the Sweet Valley High Gladiators, a very prestigious job in the community. And she is knowing her numbers, and she loves to be like, Ken, you have 75 freaking touchdowns today, and you will be breaking the record tomorrow. And him being like, I love that you are knowing how many touchdowns I have. And she's from the side being in love with Ken and being like, but he'd never notice me. And Amy is like always planting kisses on Ken, making everyone be like, I guess they're a couple. But then we see Ken's interiority and he's like, I don't like this, but never says anything. And so basically like, he literally never says to her, I'm not interested, or like true. Take a step back, or like, this is too, like, he literally never expresses anything to her. I'm not saying she's good or whatever, but he is extremely passive.
That's true.
He is going to be leading us all in the big game, since the book's called That Fatal Night, and you'll see the cover. We sort of know something's coming, there's an amazing way that they build tension and dread throughout the book vis-a-vis the sort of accident that we all know is coming. It's so brilliant. So many moments where I just write
so great.
Brilliant. Anyhow, eventually Ken's driving people home from the party. He gets in an accident, gets hit by a drunk driver, driving the wrong way, a famous way that people die in these books. It's
only
also
way
raining.
Only way to die.
He actually doesn't get hit by it. Yep. He's swerving to avoid it because it's coming to him and oncoming. And then he hits actually a tree. And he ends up being blinded by this. The doctor says it's a closed head injury or something. And the doctor basically says, like, what's going on is your brain is swelling. And like, that is to some degree causing this blindness. We don't know if that's going to be permanent or not. We just have to wait and see what happens when the swelling goes down. So just go to rehab and deal and like learn how to navigate the world being blind, and then go back to life and see what happens. And that's what he does. And in the course of that, falls in love with Terri, who's the only person who knows how to like treat him normal and cool, and like is supportive to him to be empowered to
live a full, complete, authentic life.
Yes. But then this interesting thing happens, which I don't think you see coming. Like for me, I don't see this coming, and it's interesting to me, is that like what starts out is really positive, which is her impacting him in this really incredible way to be like, I actually can do stuff and I can run on the beach in this glorious moment and so on.
Oh.
But then, and you're thinking, wow, this is so gorgeous, and it is. But then it becomes interesting because we see a codependency develop, and we start to see that it's actually a bit being counterproductive. She's actually helping him too much to where he's not doing stuff that he could be doing for himself. Like, and he's basically losing his skills that he developed at rehab around like independence and getting around on his own and stuff.
And like, famously, she has the symptom that every girl has when they get too involved with a boy. She fails a pop quiz, she fails tests because she's so busy helping him that she can't take care of herself. Oxygen masks.
Yeah, so we start to see like alarm bells. And then she basically tells him like whatever, they like get in a fight and then make up? Am I
Ba-
missing something that happens in between?
So
What?
basically, he realizes he's in love with her, but thinks she would never love me. How
Oh
could
yeah.
anyone love a blind person? She is in love with him, but she thinks he's so great, he would never ever be interested in me. They have a big fight where he like is really shitty to her. She running away confesses her love to him.
Mhm.
He realizes we are in love. He calls her home. She is not there. And he says, I know where she is. She's on the beach where we go running together. I'm going to go find her on the beach. And he, using his newfound independence and his skill set, he navigates to the beach. There's this beautiful moment where he gets himself to the bus stop and he's waiting for the bus, and a kid is driving by and it's like, hey, Ken Matthews. Is he Fat Albert or no? I don't know. No, it's not Fat Albert.
Please don't ever do that again.
Sorry, I apologize. Oh, that was. He's like, hey, Ken Matthews, where are you going? I'll give you a lift. And Ken is like, no, I'm going to do this on my own. He takes the bus. He asks the bus driver, please let me know when we get to the beach. Bus driver says, sure. He gets off the bus. He reunites with Terri. They profess their love to each other. Oh, the many, many kisses they kiss. And they fall in love.
Mhm. Yeah, it does get on to an uncomfortable place where in the moments where he is treating her really shitty and like being like controlling over her and like she can't leave him alone for 5 seconds and you're like, okay, this is getting kind of toxic. But luckily she does call him out on that and she does say to him, listen, I've been actually helping you too much and whatever. And he does realize it and he apologizes and says he's been shitty and he like gets a renewed motivation to continue to like pursue his independence and his like whatever growth and his everything and go see the rehab guy again or whatever, and it's really nice.
It was really nice. Um, the other B plot, so it's actually a sub A plot, which is what a B plot is the Amy of it all. Before the accident, she is like
Mm.
very publicly, he's my boyfriend, kissy, kissy, kissy. She, I wonder if this is building a backstory. I don't know what it is. She like can't go to the hospital. She's so nervous about going to the hospital. She gets really freaked out. Then when she finds out that he's not doing well, she like really distances herself. She's really cold. She starts dating the new quarterback, Scott Trost, who we of course get their full name.
He's been around before
I don't know
peripherally,
him. Okay.
just literally just by name.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
he's
there's
literally
so
just
many
been mentioned
names.
like
I
once.
can't.
I know.
I'm not Terry. I don't have like a statistical encyclopedic knowledge
You're
of the.
not an assistant statistician of the Gladiators of Sweet Valley High School.
I would like to be an assistant to that assistant. That is what I would shine. Um, oh, and then she just starts dating Scott and is really, really cold and weird to Ken. There are so many misdirects in this book. And I don't know if it counts as a misdirect when it's like my mind is just racing at ways things could go. We keep being told Amy is acting like she is Ken's girlfriend, even though they are not girlfriend boyfriend, and Ken doesn't want to be girlfriend boyfriend. And she keeps like insinuating herself and she keeps getting more and more involved and like saying hi to the parents and all of this stuff. And then she goes to the hospital. It's like, oh, I'm the one who should see him. I'm the one who should see him. And as I'm reading, I'm like, you're not his girlfriend. You're just acting like his girlfriend. And I thought there's like a sliding doors version of this book that is like Sleepless in Seattle. No, fuck. Blew it. While
While
you
you
were
were sleeping.
sleeping, where she like takes on the identity of his girlfriend and then inhabits that and like makes it so.
Like he has amnesia or something.
Even if he doesn't have amnesia, just like he's incapacitated and she insinuates herself so much that she like makes
Okay.
herself, but that does not happen.
I don't think it's necessarily misdirect, but I think it's a way it could have gone, which would have been interesting. I think it's sort of a bummer the way the whole thing with Amy's handled because when I was reading it, I was half expecting, and maybe this is what you were alluding to, and you said maybe it's setting up a backstory, which I don't think it is, although maybe, but like that we're going to see some character development or some complexity to Amy where like, why is she? Because it's not that uncommon for people to be really uncomfortable with illness and hospitals,
Mhm.
and she doesn't know how to handle it. She just can't deal. And so she goes, she won't go in the hot, whatever it is. And like, I thought it was going to go to somewhere where we sort of
understand why she feels that way. Did she have some experience? And then she's able to either at the end, explain that to Ken, say, I'm sorry, and they can have a friendship or at least just something.
Yeah.
But it like literally is just what she's a bitch. It's like
Yeah.
they just want to tell us over and over again. Amy is completely lacking any morals. All she cares about is boys and herself, and she's always shallow and she's always self-absorbed. She has no layers. It's like, why? Why do they insist on making her so one-dimensional? Like, that's not good writing. And
Yeah.
like, it's rude to her. You don't have to make it that we have to like her, but at least show us why she is the way she is.
Give her a dead grandma. It's like, it's so easy. Give her a grandma who lingered in hospital, had a really hard time with it. She really didn't process it. She tried to talk about it with her mom. Her mom was too busy at the sports station.
Or make it that she once had a situation like in the first episode of season 1 of Salt Lake City where Mary Cosby told, I think, Jen Shaw, you smell like hospital, and said that she really can't deal with hospital smell. When Jen Shaw spent the whole day at the hospital with like her dying mother, and Mary's like, you smell like hospital. I can't handle this. Anyway, it's really funny.
Wait, did we get a backstory on why Mary Cosby can't deal with the smell of hospital? Or is that the
I
same
think
as
she was
Amy?
like, I always have hated hospitals. They were like, yeah, everyone does. I don't know.
Huh, so
Anyhow,
that's
we love
actually
her
kind
now.
of
We stand for her.
similar to what Amy has.
Yeah, except Mary Cosby's a legend, and Amy could never be 1/80th of the woman Mary is, even though she, according to, well, I'm not even going to say it because I love her now. So I'm on her side. I support Mary Cosby. I love her, and I wish all the best for her son, Robert Jr.
Robert?
And fuck it, even her grandfather she's married to, Robert Sr. All the love and respect to all of them.
Oh,
that she
she's the
has
one
married
who
to her
married her own
grandfather.
grandfather?
And I 100% support it more than anything in the world. I love their family. Nothing but love to them and admiration and support and prayers.
Woof. Yeah, a lot of
I
prayers.
love the Cosbys. I love the Cosbys. What?
I said a lot of prayers.
He's doing a lot better. Anyway, he actually is. On the reunion, they did a huge close-up on Andy while a tear was falling off his face like this. Okay.
Couldn't care less, and that is not going in the works cited. Just to be transparent.
Oh,
I'm not posting a picture of Andy Cohen in our works cited.
Do you know how many times you've put Taylor without my consent?
Yeah.
A lot.
Not actually, A, not that many. And B, to compare Taylor Swift, who is a generational talent, to Andy fucking Cohen
who is a cultural
douchebag?
messiah?
Sorry. Misogynist. That's the word. You mispronounced misogynist.
Andy Cohen is one of the most important people and who has contributed to the shaping of our culture in ways that deserve bravo. And they will
Oh God, bravo. Very clever.
And I didn't even mean that. I was just thinking bravo. I was even thinking of learning more at bravotv.com, which we should always be wanting to do, is going to bravotv.com for more and always supporting all the Bravo brands.
I'm with my aunt at the hospital all week, who's like my mother. We find out she has to get both legs amputated. Mary knew what I was dealing with.
She came into the restaurant and she like hugged me and laid all on me. I was like, ooh, trying to keep my composure at the same time, trying not to let her know I'm sensitive. I can't, that smell I will.
Okay. Do you want to guess the tagline?
I do.
Is Ken something? That's all I'm gonna say.
Is Ken in over his head with Amy? I assume it's not something serious, like, will Ken survive?
Are there any other options?
Is it something serious?
Well, you may recall that when there's a sort of serious event,
it's about
oftentimes the title will be kind of ambiguous to like, could it mean death, or could it mean this, or could it mean...
Will Ken and Amy survive the night?
Or will it be fatal?
Or will it be fatal? By the way, sorry, no, it won't be fatal. Just, I don't know if we need to...
Oh, we'll get into it.
Okay, sorry.
We will get into it. Do you want me to do the let me try it.
Are Amy and Ken...
Take Amy out of it.
Is Ken going to survive? Then, okay. Is there a way for Ken to recover or not?
Will Ken's life be ruined in one tragic moment?
Oh, that's beautiful.
And on the back?
A dangerous drive, ...
A fatal night.
Is it really?
No. Sudden tragedy, ...
Sudden tragedy. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Ready for the cover?
I don't think I am based on what you just said. Huh. Huh. Okay. So listeners, remember that if you need to see this cover, you can go to Sweet Valley Hive
That's right.
at Instagram. So what we have, okay. Sorry, I'm having a hard, okay. So Ken
Penis?
Matthews, I'm not having a hard penis. Not having a hard penis. So he looks like a Ken doll, basically. Blonde hair brushed out of his face. Brilliant blue eyes. Is this Terri next to him? She's not petite enough to be Terri. That can't be. Is it Amy?
Amy's blonde. I read it as Terri, but I also just wrote down she's not so petite because he's tall.
Yeah, and she's eye for eye with him, which we'll talk about in a second.
Maybe she's standing and he's sitting.
He's actually.
Maybe she would be petite. Maybe that should be. Maybe he's sitting on that
in
bed.
no, he's laying back in the hospital bed, which we can't see, and she is crouched over him. So
Yeah.
she's actually like 4'4".
Yeah.
Big hands for a little girl.
Yeah, well, she has the Jeffrey disease, disproportionately large.
It is spreading. She's looking at him with what I mean, the reason I think it could be Amy is she's looking with like confusion and a little bit of hostility. And I know that isn't Amy a dark blonde or no?
Not like this. I mean, this is brown, no question. I'm telling you, this is not Amy. If it's Amy, she got a body switch. It's not Amy. I'm telling you.
Well, I mean, did Ken get a body switch?
I think she's looking at him with concern, maybe.
Okay, it's very generous, Reed. She has her hand on his collar. So he is looking
What?
off into the distance without a focus in his eye. He is giving a very kind of stereotypical, insensitive, blind portrayal, is what I would say.
Yeah, it feels vacant.
Yeah, vacant, that's a word.
And he's just sort of gazing in this sort of unfocused-y way. And it does feel like a stereotype because he also is like specifically facing away from her, even though in the books it takes pains to describe, which, by the way, genius moment, but it describes how he learned from his rehab guy how to, he says, when you're having conversations with people, to turn your head towards them. And he says to make them more comfortable around you, which, wow, what an observation that one of the things he's having to learn in rehab is how to make other people comfortable with his vision impairment. But so the fact that they tell us in the book that he specifically turns his head to people when he's with them, and then in this book they have him at like a 90-degree angle that's just like very extreme, and then plus it's like it just feels like heavy-handed.
Yeah. Like Terri?
Like Terri's heavy hands.
We didn't talk about the title at all.
I mean, I got some stuff. Do you?
It is wild to call a book That Fatal Night when no one dies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that you have like some rich, deep insights and like what does die and what is reborn and all of that stuff. And I think it's beautiful, but it's just like on the most superficial level. It creates such an interesting experience to read a book called That Fatal Night and just be like, is somebody gonna die? Ever?
It's like Deadly Summer.
It's a Deadly Summer.
Except in Deadly Summer, that dude did actually die. But
thankfully. Well, he exploded on his own bomb.
Which is dying.
Oh, wait, to die? Okay, sure. Sorry. That's true. That is dying.
This title is so genius. I applaud it. I applaud the chutzpah to call it That Fatal Night When No One Dies, because I think it's so successful in what it does, which is it does so many things. I love this title. Calling it fatal when it's not fatal, basically, like one of the meanings of that, I think, or one of the implications we can take from that is like, for him, losing his blindness, it might as well have been fatal. he believes,
Losing his
right?
eyesight.
What did I say?
You said losing his blindness, and I thought, how interesting.
I'm sorry, let me say that again. To lose his eyesight, in a lot of ways, that is losing his life in the sense that what he values, how he sees his own value in the world. You know, there's a moment at the beginning when he's having all the glory and he's on the shoulders, and even the book says it's like where he belonged or something. You know, so the idea that this is fatal and that being so dramatic and that being so hyperbolic, I think is meaningful in that way. But I think also when we combine it with that, of course, we know what that is.
Is it a dyke dick?
It sure is.
Give me that
And then
dyke dick. Hit me with your dyke dick. We need a dyke dick theme song. Continue.
We do. Listeners, we know there's some musicians out there. Write a song called You As a Dyke Dick. The Fatal Night remix.
Oh, that's good. Oh my God, that's so good.
Yeah.
Did you say the Fatal Night remix? Also, that's very fascinating.
Yeah. Remember we spoke about proximal and distal?
Mhm.
Like those type of, right? Proximal is close and distal is far. And so why is it called That Fatal Night? Not A Fatal Night, right? That does multiple things. That is specifying, right? Versus saying A Fatal Night or just Fatal Nights or whatever.
Fatal Nights
Night
is
of
good.
Fatalities.
No,
Like,
Fatal Nights is lovely.
it's like Havana Nights. But
Exactly.
it's making it seem like this is an event that we're all familiar with. By saying That Fatal Night, it's like saying, because of course you already know the one we refer to, right? It's implying a familiarity. It's implying that this is an event that will live on in the mythology. Like this is That Fatal Night. It's sort of already mythologized. It's already been processed in a way. It feels retrospective in a way. Like there's some That Fatal Night. By using a distal word, it creates a distance, right? It's so interesting because it's like it has this built-in legendariness to it because of his prominence as like the big. It's almost as if they've seen Jason Street and they're all being like, "Oh my God," you know what I mean? It's like a soap opera as it happens.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's very, very helpful. Or interesting. Maybe not helpful, but interesting.
Thank you.
Shall we to the text?
Yeah.
Go, Sweet Valley, go! Elizabeth Wakefield was shouting so loud she thought her lungs would burst. Squeezing her boyfriend Todd Wilkins' homosexual hand, she jumped up from her seat to get a better view of the football field. The Sweet Valley High Gladiators were trailing the Palisades Pumas by 4 points. The Pumas had just fumbled, and Sweet Valley had recovered the ball. There was only 1 minute left in the game, one precious minute to turn the score around. On the field, quarterback Ken Matthews signaled for a timeout. The referee's whistle blew, and Ken trotted over to the sidelines to talk to Coach Schultz. Her heart still pounding. Elizabeth sat back down and ran a hand through her silky blonde hair. Todd, do you think Ken will be able to pull it off? Are you kidding? The Pumas don't stand a chance against Ken. A huge grin spread across Todd's handsome face. Besides, we've been undefeated all year. We're going to keep slaying, girl. House down boots, mama. Right, Elizabeth replied with a nervous nod. Then she turned back to the field and yelled, "Come on, gladiators!"
Give me commentary?
No.
I do. It's not interesting. It's just
It needs
what I got.
We're a good
It's
person.
just what I have. Take it or leave it. The fact that it starts with Go Sweet Valley Go, not even Go Gladiators Go, already is telling us, drawing like the Gladiators represent Sweet Valley. It's already telling us the stakes of this football, right? Which is like everything Ken holds on his shoulders. It's not just like the pride of the school, it's the pride of the town. And these are one and the same now.
That's good.
And also just Liz's like constant like heart beating. She's so nervous. She can't look. I mean, listen, I never remembered her being so invested in Gladiators football, but like it's just, I think, showing like the importance of them winning. After they go through the description of the twins, it goes to basically Ken doing leadership of the team and like he's doing a huddle with them. And like a couple of pages later, Liz does the strangest thing, which is like be like, "What's going on, Todd? Like what's happening over there?" Like that, and it's like Ken had come back onto the field and they were all huddling. And Todd goes, "Looks like Ken's telling his teammates the plan." I'm like, how can Elizabeth not understand that?
Well, and then the next thing that happens is the game starts back up. Ken throws a pass and she screams, "Complete!" Which like is not a term that you would use unless you know the football terminology. So she doesn't know what a huddle is, but she knows you call it a completed pass. It's wild.
It's so strange. I guess it was just an excuse for them to get Todd to be like, I'd hate to be in his shoes right now. Those guys are under so much pressure, but if anyone can handle it, Ken can. A linebacker broke through Ken's pass protection and came right at him. Instantly, Ken scrambled to the right and the player missed him. Before the Pumas could react, Ken picked up his speed and shot through a hole in the defensive line. When another player came at him, he faked a move to the left. The player fell down as Ken zigzagged to the right and leapt straight into the end zone. And no comment on that. Not going to acknowledge Robert's obscene gestures right now. I think what this is showing us is this thing of like Ken's ability to navigate the obstacles that come his way and his ability to persist and to overcome them. And what we're going to see later in this book is a very common way culturally that sometimes people are liking to talk about dealing with illness, which is that it's a battle and you have to be the strong one who beats the illness. And like, you know, there's a lot of critiques we can have of this way of talking about it. And I think there's a lot of problems with this. And now we are maybe trying to not always be talking about it, but but it's so common even still.
Yeah.
So I think that's also setting up for this thing of like, well, Ken is the strong one. If anyone can be, and I think they actually use, and in linguistics, we would call this text metricality and parallelism. I think they actually use the exact same phrasing where Todd says something like, right now when he's talking about it, he goes about the huddle, he goes, if anyone can do it, Ken can. And then later, I think after his accident, I think they say something to him about like recovering, his physical recovery. Like one of them's like, if anyone can do it, Ken can, or if anyone can do it, you can, right? It's like they're saying that these are the same type of things. And then of course, he has this brilliant moment where he basically is like realizing that navigating the world as a blind person and all the thought and like strategy and planning he's having to put into all his movements, he compares it to being on the football field and being like a quarterback. And he's like, but now the game was his whole life. I mean, brilliant. I mean,
Yeah, I cried.
Gorgeous. Okay.
One
Sorry.
tiny note is the pass is complete to Scott Trost, which is confusing because later in the book, Scott Trost becomes the quarterback.
I guess he's verse.
Good. Nicely done.
I wrote down, I think, of Pascal's herring. Because the book's called That Fatal Night. We know something's coming, right?
Of course.
And they say tragic accident, or, you know, they allude to this. We have in the moment of like Liz looking at Jessica and like contemplating Jessica or whatever, looking at her twin leading the cheers now, Elizabeth couldn't help being proud. Jessica added so much to the social life at Sweet Valley High. The school wouldn't be the same without her.
I
Which
had
feel
about
like,
that.
right?
I agree.
Were you herringed by
Yes.
this? Right?
Herringed.
So were you then expecting, and to the listeners, if you don't remember, at some point we started calling red herrings, which are sort of misdirects, Pascal's herring, like a Pascal's gun. And so them saying the school wouldn't be the same without Jess, what I'm suggesting is this is a herring because they're making us think Jess is going to be involved in this fatal night, and maybe the fatality could even be her.
Yeah, maybe she could be the fatality
But
one.
sorry, so were you then expecting, were
Yes.
you like being like, oh, how come she's not in the car? Or maybe this isn't that, like,
Maybe this
at what
isn't
point
it.
did you realize?
I realized. I mean,
Okay. All right.
it turns out that Terri, the assistant statistician, and Elizabeth they worked on a project together in French class, ? And now they're friends. That all just kind of sets up that Elizabeth is the only one that Terri is really close to in the group.
A thing they love to do, they love to be like, this random girl on the sidelines didn't know anyone, but she always sort of knew Elizabeth. They're
Yeah.
like, but she'd always really loved to be Elizabeth's friend. And oh, I laugh so hard when it's getting into the Kristen, Shelley, and Terri.
Of course.
I just laughed so hard at this. It's talking about Terry's crush on Ken. She was sitting in the stands as usual, watching him from afar. She desperately wished he would notice her someday. Not just as the assistant statistician for his team, but as somebody special. I was going to make that my 6-word review. Not just as the assistant statistician for his team. Try saying that 6 times fast.
No, we don't have time. Also, how sad for her. The assistant statistician to his team is somebody special.
So funny. I really hope to notice me. Not just as the assistant statistician. Okay.
We get more, I don't know if they're full on Pascal's herrings, but she's talking to her new friends. I'm not going to say their names. We don't care about them. And one of them is like, oh, are you going to the party? We're going to the party. Oh, could I get a ride? We'll give you a ride. And there's like all this car talk. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's going to be a fatal night. And then chapter 1 ends with Terri had a good feeling about the party. Anything could happen, couldn't it? And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, you devil dogs.
Totally. They go to party. Terry's wearing apricot lipstick. They tell her hair's short, but on the cover it's long.
Yeah, and can I just, as a kind of MUA and fashion icon, apricot lipstick that matches her flower shirt. Can you picture apricot lipstick, and does this work?
Yeah, I think it. I did. I spent time picturing it. I think it works.
Great.
But
I trust you implicitly.
we also got. I mean, since we're talking about the makeup,
Yeah.
after I wrote down hair short or long, exclamation mark, question mark, I wrote eyeliner famously emphasizes eyes / makes them look larger. That's something they've told us multiple times in these books.
It's a helpful tip. Chapter 3. I mean, of course, listeners, you'll know that we get the full name of the Sweet Valley High football player whose record Todd is trying to break. The full name of an opposing offensive lineman that that Ken hopes never to face again. Like, just all of these names.
I just wrote names.
How are we supposed to survive?
He tells her, boy, you really know football. Oh, great foreshadowing and creepiness and whatevering in the beginning of chapter 3 when they're talking about like Winston's going by bus and Amy's like, you're going home by bus? And he's like, pretty tacky, I know, but my car's in the shop or whatever. And Maria goes, the bus may take forever, but at least it'll get us there. And it's kind of like,
What won't get you there?
Scary music.
And then immediately Ken goes, no, forget it. I'll drive you home. And I'm like, oh, fuck. This is going down.
This is where it gets brilliant. Because they do this freaking musical chairs with the car that is so genius. All this talk of the configurations of, well, who's going to come in the car and who's driving and who's going to drop who off and who's going to be in the car. And then we're thinking it's going to be these ones and these ones. Oh, then Terry's like, can I come? And then it turns out that they drop off Winston and Maria, or they split up, and then actually she's going to be just with Ken, and Ken drops her off, and so we think the two of them is going to get in an accident, but no, then he drops her off safe, and then she's like, well, why don't you stay with me till and the whole time he's like, the rain's getting heavier, and then she's like, well, why don't you stay with me till the rain lets up, and he's like, no, that's fine, what could possibly happen, ha ha ha, and then
he turned left onto a winding uphill road. Wow, it's really coming down now. He turned the wipers up to high speed. Winston goes, I bet the party will go on all night. And Ken said, well, I won't be around to see it. Dun, dun, dun. I'm bushed. I hope it doesn't get any worse than this. You better give me directions. It's so foggy. He's like rubbing the windshield. Wow, it hasn't rained this hard in ages. The rain was falling so fast that the wipers couldn't clean the windshield. It was scary, Terri thought, but exciting too. A weird reaction.
Oh, I thought this was so like realistic and good because I love that it's like they're making it that from her perspective, the rain is serving as like a backdrop for the like horniness and sexual tension she's feeling. It's like she's feeling a wave of nervousness. And like it's just this dramatic irony kind of thing where we're thinking like you're nervous for the wrong reason. Like,
yeah,
right. And she's like, but she was in a panic and it's like, girl, you don't know. Right. And plus we think she's about to get hit. And like she goes, she'd finally been alone with Ken Matthews. She couldn't think of a single thing to say. The rain pounding on the roof of the car only made the silence inside seem more intense. And it's so genius because it's like the way we're perceiving the rain and then the way we're like witnessing her experience the rain and like the distance between that is so effective. It was also so realistic when they're like getting to know each other and she's like unsure if he likes her or not. It's like when she leaves, he like gives her a squeeze on the shoulder and he's like, we'll talk sometime. And then she's just like thinking that over, like, we'll talk sometime. And when I saw him say, we'll talk sometime, I had a little flutter of like, ooh, like that is something that's like, yeah, like it does kind of indicate it's like, oh, we're gonna talk now.
Yeah,
like,
when are we gonna talk? Anytime. Sometime. Sure.
Like that's cute.
That's very cute.
And he squeezed the shoulder.
And then he's driving himself alone home.
Having a sexist thought.
Oh, I was gonna skip that just to preserve his beautiful identity.
Okay, listeners, you can guess what the sexist thought is, and we'll just keep going. And if you guess it, you win a big prize.
Oh yeah, put in the comments.
If you guess it correct, you win a trip to Vegas with me and Robert. All expenses paid. Just kidding. You have to pay for it. And
we're not going to go. I mean, I would go. I love our listeners.
If it's all paid for, I still won't go. I'm not interested in Vegas. But
I've never been. Why did you pick Vegas then?
Because it's like something that would be a contest would be like to go to
Vegas. Well, RuPaul right now is doing Vegas trips. Okay. He's almost at the top of the hill when he saw two brilliant headlights come over the crest, hurtling through the rain at breakneck speed. Ken blinked in disbelief. The car was coming right at him. It was in his lane. Clutching the wheel tightly, Ken tried to swerve out of the way. Instead, his car went into a fast, violent skid. Trying desperately to regain control of the car, Ken spun the steering wheel to the right. The other car screeched by him, its horn blazing, missing Ken by bare inches. For an instant, Ken thought he was out of danger. Then he saw a large tree that seemed to be speeding toward him. And everything went black.
And then the book does this wonderful thing that they're so good at, which is juxtaposing like high stakes, either drama or emergency danger situations with like banal when other people don't know what's happening. So it goes right from like him smashing, like losing consciousness or whatever, to like Skip just being an absolute fucking doofus, and we're laughing now at him in the next chapter. What?
I mean, of course. But literally the next words after everything went black is Skip, of course, being a doofus.
Mm-hmm.
His words are, some people are incredibly lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And we as a reader have been thinking about Ken and the way he navigates and overcomes boundaries and obstacles. And he swerved out of the way and didn't get hit by the oncoming traffic. Is he incredibly lucky, or is he not being one of the lucky ones?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to do Skip Harmon? He's the guy, he's several of the guys from That Don't Impress Me Much. Shania Twain.
Just one thing. I mean, I just laughed. Like, he's like, let's face it, not many guys are as good looking as I am. I can't take the credit for that. Looks aren't something you achieve. You're born with them. And then it says, Jessica leaned forward on the couch so Skip couldn't see the look on her face. She rolled her eyes to the ceiling and mimed a silent scream. And I loved that visual. I loved picturing that. It was such a great little scene.
We already get hints of just the fact that we have to hate Amy. She's flirting with Scott.
I laughed so hard when Liz and Todd are driving home and Jess gets a lift with them and she's like, Skip sucks. He brags that he had a high IQ as a kid, and Liz is like, so what happened to him? He's not exactly honor society material now. And Jessica goes, no kidding. He's a nothing. That was really funny. He's a nothing. Okay.
We come upon the accident. It looks like a really bad one. There's an ambulance. Elizabeth notices that it's a white Toyota like Ken's.
When I see that it's a crumpled white car, I wrote, not the Toyota. I didn't realize it got totaled. I'm like, I have a lot of attachment to Ken's white Toyota.
I mean, remember, it could be back the next day. Famously, of course.
Suzanne, but that was a special edition, liminal space. I feel like the laws of physics don't necessarily, I mean, a crumpled Toyota is a crumpled Toyota in a regular edition.
You say that. We have, of
That's
course.
what the back tagline should have been, a crumpled Toyota. ...
We have, of course, a weird interaction with the cops. Elizabeth, Todd, and Jess get out of the car and just like walk up to the crime scene. And the cop is like, you need to get away from here. And Elizabeth just goes, excuse me, we think we may know the driver of the car. And Todd goes, can you tell us who it is? Probably like thinking the police officer's hot. He loves the guy in uniform. And the police officer just goes, Kenneth Matthew, address is 1512 Azalea Court. Do you know him?
Like, why wouldn't the police officer be like, why don't you tell me?
No,
Who
the
you
police
think it
officer
is?
would be like, clear the area. I don't care if you're a high school kid who goes to this kid's high school. You're not next of kin. You're not here. Bye.
That too. And then it gets even crazier.
Okay.
Like, I lost my mind at like their whole conversation, but like, what should we do now? They decide to go back to the party. Okay. They have just seen their friend like might be dead, and they are going back to the party, and Liz is like, let's not go to the hospital. We should visit tomorrow, or like, we'll see. Because like, even when he's awake or whatever, he's going to need a lot of rest. I'm like, how do you know he's ever waking up? We don't know if he's going to be alive or dead. Like tomorrow, there might not be a tomorrow. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I wrote 100 times, call his parents,
Yeah.
like they literally go to the party and start telling everyone in town. I'm like, where was calling his parents? Where?
I do want to extend a little bit of grace. Elizabeth doesn't know she's in a book called That Fatal Night. So
She just saw his crumpled Toyota and she saw his body go in a stretcher.
Yeah, well.
He's unconscious. She knows he's unconscious because she says, well, I see he's unconscious, but at least he's still alive. So she actually knows, she clocks that he's unconscious. The parents don't deserve a phone call, they don't deserve an FYI.
We flash back to the party. they tell what's going on.
Near the end of chapter 5, I did laugh when they're at the hospital and they see the parents exiting. Everything about this conversation is so crazy. I can't even deal with it. But basically, the mom goes, he regained consciousness this morning. I guess this is the next day. He has some serious cuts and bruises on his face and neck, but he's going to live. They seem pretty sure of that. Nothing about this makes sense. It's like, so does he have a brain injury? Like,
Yeah.
what are we talking about? What are his injuries? Like, say his injuries. Anyhow, but she goes, but he's going to live. And then Amy goes, that's fabulous.
I
It
mean,
was so funny.
it's funny. It's also like she's in a situation where she doesn't know the right thing to say. It's like pretty relatable. Not that relatable, I guess.
Yeah, but they're trying to make her the demon and they make Jessica be the like being normal one more. But what if you can't play football?
What if he can't play football? Terri doesn't know what's going on and finds out at school on Monday.
I wrote, how would she have not heard? Like, it's not like she has no friends,
Yeah.
doesn't know anyone in town. Like, all her
All
best
the
friends are
sports
athletes.
girls, yeah.
They're all athletes. Like, it's not like these people don't have phones. Ken having a crumpled Toyota is pretty big news, especially if you care about sports.
Amy refers to Terri with one of our favorite didactics, that girl Terri.
If you think I
Several
didn't underline
times.
it. If you think I didn't underline that.
I mean, but he was on his way back from taking Winston and Maria and that girl Terri home. Then later in the same conversation, if that girl Terri hadn't made him drive her home, it would never have happened. She's saying it loudly enough that Terri can hear.
Distance, that girl, Terri. She's not one of us.
She's not one of us, that Terri.
Like, Liz, like, is trying to be comforting to Terri or whatever. And she goes up to Terri and she goes, it's me, Liz. I'm like, oh, she must be knocking on a bathroom stall or something. No, she's like, they're just outside. She just goes right up to her and she goes, I mean, she's crying or she's doing like
crying.
But I'm like, to say it's me, Liz, come on. She could figure out that it's Liz.
When would you say it's me, Liz? If you were coming
That
upon
person
someone
was vision impaired,
who were vision impaired.
but Terri is not vision impaired.
Well, her vision was impaired by crying. Tears. We get as in every one of these stories, we get Terri blaming herself. She feels really responsible. I'm going to be honest. Liz fucking bangs in this book.
Liz is excellent in this book. She gives almost without fail, perfection, gorgeous advice. However, I do want to know the ideology here. She says, you know what a fighter Ken is on the football field, so you should know he'll get better in no time. Ken won't let anything keep him down, not even a car accident. That's problematic, right? Because it's framing disability basically as failure.
Yeah, I agree.
It's framing illness as failure. So just calling it out. But yeah, Liz is overall amazing in this book. She got an excellent performance review.
Amy goes in to see Ken. She has kind of like a Jessica-like fantasy of how Ken's going to be the center of attention once he heals back and they'll be in the paper. Everyone will be watching her. Wouldn't it be ironic? She thought if Ken's tragedy brought them together, but of course, see, this is why I thought it was going to be Sleeps in Seattle, because she doesn't say if Ken's tragedy brought them closer together. She says brought them together. So it feels like she knows they're not really boyfriend, girlfriend. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Arquette, of course, we get his name, comes in and he says, it's time to take the bandages off. All right, Ken, keep your hands down while I finish your face and neck. I might cry just reading this. Ken felt increasingly comfortable as the bandages were peeled away section by section. His skin felt tender, but otherwise fine. Well, Ken, that about does it, Dr. Arquette said. Now I'd like to ask you a few questions about... But aren't you going to finish? What do you mean? The bandages over my eyes. Aren't you going to take them off? I'm sorry. And then the rest of this is just explaining why he might be blind. And Ken goes, is that why you can't remove the eye bandages? Dr. Arquette cleared his throat. Ken, I have removed them. They're off now. Sweet baby boy. This was a real moment for me.
What was your reaction?
I cried.
No, but I mean, what did you... Like,
I was surprised. I was shocked. I mean, the use of fatal made me think someone has to die. Did at least the drunk driver die? We know drunk drivers die. Drunk driver doesn't die. He doesn't die. I was gobsmacked and surprised.
Once you knew that he was regained consciousness, the parents say he's going to be okay, did you have an expectation that you had no sense something like this was coming?
No sense at all. I mean, it happens
now we're
very
going to have
quickly.
his recovery and whatever, right?
Yeah, it happens very quickly. Like we find out he's going to be fine. Bandages come off, take them off my eyes. It's really something.
The way they do this reveal is pretty wild. First of all, there's this sort of ambiguity from the beginning about why can't he see? Because a couple pages before, it says that Dr. Arquette came in. Dr. Arquette's voice was full of confidence. Ken pictured him as an older man in his 50s at least. So we know that he hasn't seen him, right? And that he still can't see him. So now we then really are understanding that his face is covered in the gauze. Like it says that his face was bandaged to where there was only a tiny slit for him to breathe and talk or whatever. And at that point, it could be ambiguous if his eyes are covered or not. Now we know for sure his eyes are covered, right?
Right.
So now we know, okay, he hasn't seen Arquette because his face is covered, right? And then you get this buildup of like, well, okay, like, aren't you going to finish taking the bandages off? And then for some reason, Dr. Arquette makes him he makes Ken guess and like spell everything out instead of just giving him information. And he says the craziest thing. They go through this like, aren't you going to finish? Like the bandages, like, why aren't you taking them off? And he's like, I'm sorry. Ken, you had a closed head injury. That means the trauma to your head has caused some swelling in the brain. We often don't know what permanent damage has been done until the swelling goes down. It may take months or even years to know the final results. And that's why you can't remove the bandages? Ken, I have removed them. They're off now. And then his parents are like, it'll be okay. And his mom's like, we'll find a way to make this work. And he's like, huh? And then the doctor's like, I'm very sorry, Ken. We did the best we could. There was no way of knowing the results until we removed the bandages, which is why I didn't warn you.
I'm a bad doctor.
Your eyesight would be fine. I hope you understand. And then Ken through gritted teeth says, oh, I understand you're telling me I'm blind. And
which they aren't actually, they don't even tell him.
This is crazy. This is so fucking crazy. Because what the doctor is saying is like, there was no way to know if you were going to be blind or not. So I decided to just hope for the best and let's see what happens. It's like, are you kidding? How about before removing the bandages, you have a conversation with him that's like, listen, I just want you to have expectations, like be prepared that like sometimes with this type of swelling, there could be short-term effects and they may or may not persist and we're just gonna have to see how it goes and like, but don't freak out and like, we'll just deal with it as it comes or something.
Or do
like,
freak out. If you need to freak out, freak out.
And I'm here for you. But like, just so you know, let's see what happens. But if you're experiencing certain things, like, it may not be forever, and if it is forever, we're gonna give you all the support you need, okay? And I also am like, from a medical perspective, I feel like vis-a-vis imaging and so on, they'd have some sense of what but maybe if the brain's so swollen they can't tell. I don't know. We'll have to get a brain doctor on the pod. But anyhow,
right
it's
now,
just crazy.
Almost no time.
I feel like they had to pull it out and pull it out and pull it out because they really wanted to have this moment of him being at the end, like, I'm blind.
I mean,
because they think it's like
it works.
Yeah, it works.
It was very effective and effective. I think we can.
Wait, so sorry, were you the like? Was your experience of this being like, well, wait a minute, what? But the bandages, but he did remove them. Like, were you literally?
Yes,
like,
of course. What do you even mean? Yeah, of course.
So you realized he was blind when he said, "I'm blind."
Well, no, I mean when he said, "I have removed them," I understood.
Okay.
Maybe I understood when he said, "The bandages over my eyes, aren't you going to take them off?" Maybe I realized.
Okay,
but it's all happening so fast.
I know we're in a hurry, but it still continues so crazy, the doctor conversations. Like chapter 7, he's like, Dr. Arquette, does this mean I'll never see again? And the doctor's like, well, never say never.
He sighs. Imagine if you asked a doctor that and he goes,
he sighed before too, when he said warm the bandages off.
So much sighing.
He's like, well, maybe you will, maybe you don't. Like, and then Bob's like, that's right, darling. There's always hope. That made me laugh. But he's like, it's like, can we get some more information? Like,
there is no more information.
Are there numbers? Are there like
no
factors?
One can predict.
Are there
no. Ken internalizes a lot of ableist ideologies that have been part and parcel of his upbringing. He thinks like his friends wouldn't want to deal with someone blind. They were used to Ken Matthews, football hero, not Ken, the guy who couldn't even make his way down the hall. No one wanted to spend time with him, and especially not any girls. Ken is scared to tell people, but he does actually just tell them. He like literally, they bring him a card and he's like, well, I don't want to tell him. And he's like, well, I guess I will tell him I'm blind. Then Ken goes to a rehab facility for a month. Don't worry. Of course, we get Ken's counselor's name, Ron Jablonski. Again, that's Ron Jablonski.
And he's always referred to by two names. Like, he'll be like, even when Ken's at home, he'll be like, and he thought to himself, he could have never made this much progress if not for
Ron Jablonski.
Ron Jablonski. Like, thanks to Ron Jablonski. I'm like, wow, okay.
They start to have almost like like Terri wants to kiss him and they're like getting kind of closer, and then Ron Jablonski opens the door and so she has to leave.
We get some pretty, I think, well observed scenes of like frustration in rehab, which was nice. Just seeing him work through having to work really, really hard to get things that used to be
very easy. Second nature. We also get a good scene of Winston helping Ken when Ken returns to Sweet Valley, but Winston actually doesn't know how to help. And it's like Ken is in this like kind of space where he has to both advocate to get what he needs and also say things like, don't feel bad. Not many people know how to walk with blind people. It isn't exactly something you do very often. And it's just really interesting to watch him cope with this.
Yeah, and like when he feels like he has to be gracious versus when he just gives into his like resentment. And like really, I think nice moment when he has the thought that like he had always been the leader and now he is going to have to get used to being led sometimes when Winston is leading him through class. And I also liked that it showed being in this transition period until he memorizes the layout or gets comfortable with the layout of school to navigate on his own with the cane. Winston's going to help him that first day, you know? But so that first day then there's a lot of frustrations associated with it.
He gets to class.
Staring at him.
He's really exhausted.
Really nice depictions of how there's all these just layers for him to deal with of like everything feels like he's so conscious of feeling like a disruption or feeling like things are calling attention to the blindness, and everyone is like trying to be well-meaning but just making it worse, and the teacher is like shouting at him. But then when he says to the teacher like, I can hear, it's not my ears that are the problem or whatever, then the teacher is like embarrassed and he feels like, oh no, he has to like manage their embarrassment, and it's all this of like him feeling like he has to like protect other people's discomfort, manage and also his own discomfort. And I could see how this is exhausting, so it was very realistic, I felt.
He has an encounter. He's sitting outside and Terri comes upon him, and their very first thing, she says, "It's me, Terri. Can I sit down?" And he hopes that she's not going to be like, I'm so sorry. And what she says is, after a while, she says, don't those magnolias smell fantastic? And I mean, I cried at this too. Just the idea that she instinctively and intuitively knows how to relate to him and to talk about things that he can understand.
And she's also in this whole book struggling with how to say the right thing or how to do the right thing. And she's trying to figure that out. And like, she's just way better at it than everyone else. Cause she like basically tries to, for the most part, treat him like who he is and also be sensitive to his new needs. When he starts thinking about football, like he finds himself intuitively exiting towards the football field, whatever. And he's like, but thinking about football had been taboo. It's like the one thing he wouldn't let him think about because it felt too hard to confront that grief or that, like, how's he going to reconfigure his relationship to football? And it's so cool to see later her invite him to a football game and he does that. And that's like such a huge step. And he's able to still participate and cheer for the team and like be excited and whatever. That was so cool, but that felt very realistic. But then also he hears people talking, like overhears people talking about him or whatever, or about Scott and Amy. And he thinks to himself, was he that invisible? And it's this thing we've spoken about before about like visibility and hypervisibility. And on the one hand, sort of like Regina, like he, you know, due to his disability is made hypervisible in ways that are embarrassing for him. On the other hand, he's made invisible. It's nice.
And he's just having such a nice conversation with Terri. And suddenly it occurred to Ken that he would like to spend more time with Terri Adams. Then he remembered that he was blind. What girl would want to go out with him now? Amy had dumped him, and Terri would never be interested in that way either. And so we get like, this is basically the whole conflict. She loves him. He loves her. They can't see it for each other. And I think we're going to keep skipping. We are well over time, which means we are not getting our hot dog stories. Liz gives this interesting advice to Terri. If you really want to relate to Ken, put a blindfold on and kind of move around your house and see what happens. And she does, and she really gets a sense of like, not only how hard it is, but like what you need to do in order to navigate the world that way. And she feels how exhausting it is.
A lot of layers here. I mean, on the one hand, it's kind of Tyra Banks' school of empathy, vis-a-vis sort of like spending an afternoon kind of quote unquote in someone's shoes and sort of thinking you then have a complete understanding of their experience. That aside, she actually does, I agree with you, develop some actual meaningful empathy and actual sort of understanding of just awareness of considerations of, you know, and it helps her be a better kind of guide to him. And she then, you know, we see her guiding him very thoughtfully and talking about steps and anticipating the type of, you know, just describing to him what they're seeing so he feels like he's oriented and all this stuff. It's great. I did write down, she could have taken also a book. There are, you don't always have to sort of DIY everything, maybe read a book or, she can't Google, resources for, but anyhow, it was had a good outcome. But I did also really enjoy Liz's advice. I do want to just call out really quick. When Terry's talking to her about she's like, I know the wrong things to say. I don't know the right things to say, which felt so realistic. And people always say that about grief. But before Liz gives the advice about walking around your house, they have the conversation where Terry says, well, he doesn't want to be pitied, which is what everyone's doing. Maybe I should just act as if nothing happened to him. I don't know, Elizabeth replied. That might be a step backward. I think he's made a lot of progress getting used to being blind. Now he has to get used to being blind at Sweet Valley High. That's got to be pretty hard. And basically what she's saying without saying is, you don't want to not acknowledge his experience. Right. It's pretty significant what he's gone through and going through, which is so brilliant and balanced, right? It's like, it's this whole thing of well, you don't want to pretend to be colorblind because that's just ignoring reality. So you don't want to pretend to be blind to his disability and blind to his trauma, this traumatic event he had, because that's, and I'm using the word blind.
In a pejorative way.
Although Ken says it's okay. Ken gave me permission because Ken said in their class, you can say the word see.
Yeah, that is not exactly what happened with you, but okay.
No, they were saying it metaphorically.
No, I know, but there's a difference between using the word see metaphorically and using the word blind to mean ignorant of.
Is there though, ultimately speaking?
I'm not getting into this. I already have been robbed of my hot dog.
Fine, you're the one.
What else will you take from me? What else will you take from me?
Blah, blah, blah.
Hot dog stories you've robbed from me.
We can skip the surprise party. We can skip about Jessica and Amy. Winston makes an uncomfortable joke at this surprise party they make him.
Mm-hmm.
Ken's like, wow, this is great of you guys. You got me a whole cake or whatever. And Winston's like, we were able to sneak the thing in right under your nose, buddy, slapping him on the back. And Ken's body went rigid. Then he forced out a little laugh. At least Winston's corny joke proved he was getting a little more comfortable with Ken's blindness. I love this moment. It's so realistic. It's that thing of how do you do what we're just saying with Liz, balance acknowledging the reality without and trying to take the edge off and acknowledging that this is what's happened or whatever, and making space that that can be discussed or whatever. But this joke fell really, I don't want to say blind. I was going to say this joke fell blind, but I guess this joke fell flat. Now I'm being rude to flat-chested people.
That's fine.
So the joke fell without a laugh, and
with little breasts, we would say.
I mean, it's lucky that they're small and humble, so you don't confuse them with mountains, Robert. And that's
Shakira,
really important.
That's your namesake, Shakira.
But I don't know. I've been Winston in that situation.
Oh my God. I laughed at Winston's joke until I turned the page and it was Ken did not find that funny at all. I was like, no, that's not funny. Certainly not. I mean, whatever.
Terry shows Ken that he can still run, and they run hand in hand, and it's so sweet. I was literally just drawing hearts all over my notebook at this point.
So there's this moment where they're on the beach and she's doing everything so beautifully. She gives him shells and is do you want to feel these? Do you want to touch these? And he talks about how I always did my running on the beach. It gave me such a great feeling I was free. I don't know why you keep saying you used to run, which is weird because he doesn't actually ever use the phrase I used to run, but that's fine. I don't know why you keep saying you used to run. You still can. And he's sarcastic, oh, sure. And she's like, you can still run on the sand, Ken. Try it now. The beach is empty and I'm right here beside you. And I am fucking sobbing. He starts crying. I mean, I need you to picture this. Sorry. It is midnight 05. Martin is snoring asleep in bed next to me. It is completely dark. I am under the covers reading my iPad and sobbing quietly because I'm I don't want to wake Martin up with my tears. But he goes, here goes nothing. Terri kicked off her sandals and the two of them took off hand in hand. They started slowly, then picked up the pace, and soon they were running briskly along the shore. After a while, Ken let go of her hand and Terri began humming a little tune so we'd know where she was. I feel like I'm dreaming. This is fantastic. Ken let out a yelp of sheer exhilaration. I'm sobbing quietly. The last time I did that, probably, it wasn't the last time, but have you ever read A Little Life? I read A Little Life also in bed after midnight, and it's basically just gay trauma porn, and I cried the entire time. This is that. Only
when you were sobbing, was it do you mean really Are you exaggerating, or do you mean really like active sobs? Like we're not talking like
I'm
you
not
really
Andy
sobbing?
Cohen with one queer little tear trickling down my cheek, you motherfucker. I'm crying like a real person with real feelings, okay?
Like you're being like, like you're doing that? That's sobbing. You're doing-
I did say I was quietly sobbing.
So you were doing like there should be convulsions.
Oh my
More
God, there
than
were
convulsions.
certainly convulsions. Are you
Okay,
kidding me?
that's what I'm trying to get at. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, like it should feel like wrong. Like you're holding
felt
it like
very
you're gonna
wrong.
gag or something.
Yeah, it was like
Okay,
vomiting
good.
kind of.
No, I mean this was gorgeous. I mean, please. I mean, this particular detail, they're running hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Then she lets go and he's running on his own, right? And then she hums a tune so he can hear where she is. It was such a gorgeous, gorgeous metaphor of sort of like secure detachment, or like not even secure detachment, but just the idea that like she's saying like, I'm here for you, but I'm not holding you. Like you're doing this yourself and I'm here for you. Like how gorgeous metaphor.
That is exactly what secure attachment is. It's like, I mean,
Yeah.
what's interesting is we think of that often in terms of parent-child relationships, where it's like I present or provide a secure base from which you can explore, but you know you can always come back to me. And it's in some ways she is parenting him in a way that his parents really aren't. His parents are basically like, we'll fight through this, we'll do this. And she's like, how do I help? One thing I love the way that it plays on her strengths. Like they go to the football game together and she's really good at describing what happens because, of course, say it again, say it loud, say
He's
it
assistant
proud.
statistician.
She's
I don't think that automatically means
statistician. She's assistant statistician. She's assistant
she's a
statistician.
statistician. Donna Martin graduate.
That's-
I don't think
That's what it was. I was like, at one point I was like, am I doing she's making jewelry now? I only have references that you've shared with me. So I was like, what am I doing? She's assistant statistician. She's assistant.
I don't actually think that would automatically make her a good commentator, though.
Well, it
So I
does
think
in
they're
this
two
case.
separate skill sets.
Well,
Yeah.
she's got them both. Bitch got them both.
She's an excellent commentator. And so he's enjoying and it says his zest for life was coming back. She's making him feel whole.
He also has such a sense of perspective. Were you going to read this?
Yes, and I was going to say he also was having a sense of perspective, and that's what I wrote down.
Football was great, but it was just a game. It wasn't the whole world, he thought, taking Terry's elbow as they stepped off the bleachers. There was a lot more out there that he wanted to experience, like fucking Terry.
You know,
And that's
are we going to
beautiful.
necessarily be seeing Ken exploring things outside of football in future books? I don't necessarily know
I
that we
wouldn't bet
actually
on that.
necessarily are witnessing that, but I love that he's having the impulse. That's gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
And
we love that journey, that very short journey for him.
in the next section, when they're back running at the beach, which is their new routine,
Mhm.
it says he had gotten to the point where running when he couldn't see where he was going seemed natural. Not
Mhm.
only that, but it felt great. That's beautiful, right? That's
Mhm.
like, not to sort of state the obvious here, but when we talk about things being ableist in these books, like a lot of what we're talking about is that they speak of disability as like inherently bad, right? Like being blind is terrible, this, right? And of course, his injury and his suffering is terrible, and it's very, very difficult for him to adjust to this. But it's not that it's being blind is, or what I guess we would probably say in 2025, whatever, maybe would be that like, it's not that being blind is terrible, it's that being blind in an ableist and inaccessible society and environment is terrible, right? But when you have the support that you need, it's just different.
Yeah.
And him running feels natural. It
is
not
natural.
a problem. It's not, yeah, and it feels great. And it's like so beautiful to see him like inhabit that.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, so when I teach about disability in class, I use the WHO's definition of disability, which talks about disabilities like
Oh my God, I would never use that definition. Wow, you don't know. It's like actually been canceled. It's like so outdated. Oh my God, you're still using that definition. Wow, you really didn't read the paper by Johnson and Johnson 2022, I guess.
Johnson & Johnson was a good one. It's funny because you have 1,000 names you could choose from. This book is just a phone book of names. Jablonski, Trost. There's so many
Jablonski
names.
2022 would really disagree with you using that definition, Robert.
But it's just about how disability is a natural part of life. And we talk in class about how, like, if you're lucky enough to age, you are likely going to experience some diminution or decretion in your ability, and you will experience some disability. And like this book, for all its faults, this book does a beautiful job of being like, this is a natural part of life, and we can live a full, authentic, beautiful life. We can still fuck. It's beautiful.
Illness and disability are the night side of life, you could say.
Who would say that?
Susan Sontag.
She would. We got to keep moving. I've already lost my hot dog. I mean, we need a secondary carrot to keep us, because once we're out of, that's a problem with this kind of reward system, is once we're done, it's like, well, I'm not getting my hot dog stories. Who cares anymore?
At Joy's concert, he wants to kiss her, but scared of falling in love. But then he thinks to himself, he just wasn't capable of being a real boyfriend. That's very sad.
He puts
learned
distance
Terri-
between him and Terry. We learn Terry something. What do we learn about
Is
Terry?
failing something because she helped him, and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
having. We're seeing that the dynamics becoming fucked up. Like he's having these frequent outbursts, and it says she realized their friendship had disappeared as his outbursts had become more frequent. It's like, yeah, because of this weird codependency thing.
Yeah.
She asks
And-
Liz for advice. Liz calls out the codependence, and she tells him what's up, basically. And she, in her course of telling him what's up, says, "I love you."
It's
And he
beautiful.
realizes everything.
And we've told
And
this
they
story.
reconciled. They reconciled at the beach, and I said, "Mewing, mewing,
Mewing.
mewing." You know about this?
Is it the thing that kids do where so that their jawline is
Yes.
good or whatever?
Yes.
He's doing this? Or she's
Okay.
doing this? I guess it's not gendered.
When my nibblings were in town, we had a session where they tried to teach me slang,
Mhm.
and they taught me mewing. And on page for me 146, which is basically
Hopefully almost
halfway
done.
through 16,
Okay.
it says, Ken gently stroked her hair, then touched her face, tenderly tracing her jawbone with his fingers. I don't know, it felt like mewing to me. And then he's like, I can sort of see the sunshine. And she's like, oh, so you can sort of see. And then he puts back his sunglasses. He's like, well, maybe, but I don't care about seeing it anymore now that I have you. I'm like, I feel like, I don't know that you would make such a little reaction over suddenly being able to see again, but
It's also kind of
whatever.
confusing because they don't do a particularly nuanced job of talking about his visual impairment. So it's like, wait, did you have no concept of light and dark at all? And now you see some light and dark? That feels huge.
Right. So that's why they have her like say that.
Yes.
Oh, it's huge. So that we know, like, oh, he wasn't seeing that before. But it is ambiguous at the end of the book. Like, so what's going on with his eyesight? We just don't know. His vision. But I can tell you here and now that his eyesight comes back perfect.
You
That's-
didn't have to tell me that. We know.
And that's the difference between these books and Friday Night Lights, which is Friday Night Lights had a character who then actually had a disability that he had to actually like then reckon with this, and they, you know, followed his story or whatever. With this, it's like they're trying to say it's okay, but it's obviously not okay because they won't let any character experience it. It's
Right.
like
It
so he gets
undercuts.
like it's like he gets the reward of getting to be able-bodied again and get his vision back because he like accepted his disability. So now he gets the reward of like that goes away. Whatever.
And then we get this abrupt jump cut. Literally, Ken says, maybe I will get my vision back someday, but when I'm with you, I don't even care if I'm blind. You make everything come alive for me. Terry stood on her tiptoes and kissed Ken again. I could say the same thing about you. She whispered. We flipped the page. Patty Gilbert sat in the bleachers after school, an open textbook on her lap. Are you kidding?
What?
Are you kidding? You, the
So
book,
weird.
not you, the you. You're eating Raisin Bran. You're not kidding at all. You're very serious about your Raisin Bran.
I love Raisin Bran.
I love Raisin Bran too. Do you sprinkle any sugar on or no?
Sprinkle sugar has, you know how much sugar it's already having?
No, probably not
Raisin
enough.
Bran has so much sugar.
Not enough.
So it tastes so good.
Mm.
No, anyone who sprinkles sugar on the Raisin Bran, that's a real problem.
Back to this. We gotta get going. I have to pee. We're way over time.
Oh, and I don't.
I don't know if you have to pee. You didn't say. Okay,
No.
so basically we get Patty Gilbert. Patty and Dee Dee are sitting there.
And do you remember who that is? Do you remember who Jim is? Do you remember these people?
You know I don't.
Okay, remember?
No.
Patty is actually our first named black character.
Oh my god!
And if you remember, she was the best friend of Dee Dee Gordon in
Yes.
Too Much in Love. And remember that was the whole thing about like Patty and Jim, her boyfriend from college, are gonna like go to the swim meet with them with a Bill's swim meet. And it's like,
Yeah.
why would Jim? And I'm
Okay.
like, well, yeah, maybe Jim's not hanging out so much anymore because he got sick of going to your fucking high school swim meets. But
They stayed together?
I guess.
I
And then
didn't-
it's like William Carlos Williams because it's like so much
Yeah.
depends on the pool party this weekend or whatever it says.
if you're running wild and free on the beach, naturally, beautifully, I'm going to think, what else could make you feel free? What else can make you feel unfettered? It's spending 2 to 2.5 hours with your favorite podcast host and hostess. So rate, review, subscribe, like, share.
And our podcast is conducive to also having a vision impairment. I mean, if you are having
Oh
a vision
my
impairment,
God.
you could be listening to our podcast and hopefully not having any accessibility issues because hopefully your screen reader is making it work.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like universal
And you
design
should-
for learning. Like, we've made it accessible to everyone by making it audio. Well, everyone, not everyone. Okay, many people.
Wow, rude.
Yeah, I
But
know, I blew
and
it.
the screen readers are the screen readers enabling the rating and reviewing and so on. I
Yes.
can't see a reason why. I mean, probably because the design is shitty and they don't prioritize and making it whatever. But because I know this because I used to work on that. But anyway, but hopefully your screen reader lets you rate, review, and subscribe, and that should be your first priority. And you should do
Maybe, I
that.
mean, depending, I don't know your priorities. But if you could add it to the to-do list. Okay, well, this has been lovely as always. I don't know about your hot dogs, but I do have to pee.
I can't tell you about the hot dogs.
That's unfortunately not available.
I'm giving you a bad stick instead.
Oh, I don't want to stick. I have to pee. Okay, love you.
Love you, bye.
Hey, 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 it's Fun Albert, and I'm gonna sing a song for you. And Bill's gonna show you a thing or two.
Thanks for listening to Sweet Valley Hive, hosted by Robert Marks and Rebecca Pardo. For more, check out our Instagram at Sweet Valley Hive. Theme song by Yessie and artwork by Elliot Carroll.